Let us now turn to methodology for the study of the Quran. If we are to build a new house of learning based on the Quran, it is in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. But as with so many other surahs in the Quran, Imran, you know, he's reciting and reciting and reciting every month, and it simply doesn't click. His eyes are going over the ayah, and he doesn't penetrate until one day, suddenly it clicks. I'm sorry, this is like an old Ford, this is how I operate. But there are others like Sulaiman alayhi salam, mashallah, like this. And he understands, in a flash, Sulaiman alayhi salam. Surah Al-Waqi'ah. And Allah makes a qasam. He takes an oath. And he says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ. And I swear, I take an oath by the positions in which the stars are located. And then he goes on to say, وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ. He said, this is the mother of all oaths. This is the mother of all qasam. This is a qasam لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ. This is a tremendously important oath that I have taken. When I say I swear by the positions in which the stars are located. And then he goes on to say, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ. This is really a noble and generous Quran. Generous means constantly giving, constantly giving, constantly giving. And it is located in a book which is protected. So I am now invited to think, I hope you also will believe that you are invited to think, what is the connection between the two? The positions in which the stars are located, and this book which is so generous and noble. What is the relationship between the two? It takes less than a few minutes of thinking to realize that Allah is saying, unless and until you use this methodology, you will never be able to study this book. That in the same way that you have to study the positions in which the stars are located to be able to read the stars, to know direction, for بِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ, to be able to know in which direction the ship must travel. In the same way you have to study this Quran. You don't study the stars by beginning with Surah Al-Baqarah, and then Surah Ali Imran, and then Surah Al-Nisa, and then Surah Al-Ma'idah. That is not the way you study the stars. No. Who studies the stars like that? You have to take one star and see how it's connected to that star, and how it's connected to this star. And that requires insight. And insight is not sold in the supermarket. وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. You got to work before Allah will bless you with insight. And He knows those who are faithful to His book, and He knows those who are negligent to His book. And so this is the fundamental verse of the Quran. And if we neglect this, guess what He says? لَا يَمَسُّهُ إِلَّا الْمُطَهَّرُونَ. Now tell me if you have the capacity to think. Is He talking when He says none can touch it except the clean and pure? Is He talking about... Is He talking about this? I mean, a little bit of thinking. A little bit of thinking. لَا يَمَسُّهُ إِلَّا الْمُطَهَّرُونَ. What relevance, what connection can there possibly be between the positions of the stars where they are located and the methodology for studying the Quran and to be clean to touch the book? Is there any link between the two? If you accept that this is literal, that this is muhkama, that you have to be clean, you have to make wudu, you have to be clean. A woman when the menses cannot touch the Quran. Then I tell you, anyone can go in the supermarket, go in the bookstore and buy a copy of the Quran and can touch it. So then the Quran will be false. Because he's not clean, he just had a nice dinner or lunch with pork, full of pork in his stomach, and he's holding the Quran. So the Quran is false. So it could not be literal. It could not be literal. It is not muhkam. Some scholars say, no, Allah is referring to that Quran which is there in heaven. La yamassuhu illa al-mutahharun. My response is, over there, they are none unclean. So then we dismiss that as well. La yamassuhu, you cannot even touch. You cannot even touch the knowledge and the wisdom that is located in this Quran. If your heart is unclean, if you're not faithful to Allah, if you betray Allah, no, I can't say that. If I speak like that, my business will collapse. You're unclean. If I speak like that, they put my name on a no-fly list. No, you can't come and lecture in our masjid because the British government will be very annoyed. Is that cleanliness in the heart? La yamassuhu illa al-mutahharun. This is, oh my gosh, what a terrible warning. You will never succeed in even touching the knowledge in this Quran if you're unclean. And unclean is a very strong word, unclean, because you're not faithful to Allah. I wish I had another 1 hour, but I don't. Let me give you one classic example of connecting the stars. And not all stars can be connected until a certain time arrives in the historical process. You could even be a Ghazali. But at the time when you lived, it was not as yet possible to be able to locate the link between this and that. So we do not look down at those who came before us. When in this age we were able to locate something that they did not locate before, it's because the time had not yet arrived. Here are 2 passages in the Quran that are linked to each other. One is in Surah Sa'd, and the other is in Surah Sabah. And they are linked to each other. But unless you have insight, unless you can connect the dots, you would not know that they are linked. There is no external knowledge out there to link it. It is internal knowledge. It is inside. In Surah As-Sad, Sulaiman alayhi salam is the king and the prophet. And the holy state of Israel, which is a Khilafah state in Jerusalem, is a ruling state in the world, in the sense that there is no rival that can threaten it. None. So he who sits on the throne of Israel is ruling the world. And one day Allah shows him something. And he sees someone sitting on his throne. He did not permit that fellow to sit on the throne. And if someone is occupying my throne and I'm the king, I'll call the guards, take him and throw him out of the window. He must be crazy. He fit for the madhouse. Who is he sitting on my throne? وَلَقَدْ بَعْدَ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا سُلَيْمَانَ وَأَلْقَيْنَا عَلَى كُرْسِيهِ جَسَدًا. We tested him. We gave him something which caused him distress, fitna, by placing a jasad on his throne. Leave the word jasad for the time being, we return to it. When he saw that jasad sitting on his throne, I would take a year or 2 years to be able to penetrate it. That's my speed. But he, in an instant, immediately he understood. He understood that this jasad was an evil being. And that this jasad wants to inherit my throne. And therefore to rule the world from the holy state of Israel in Jerusalem, this jasad. And I don't want that to happen. So Allah was showing him a vision. It could not be an actual event. And Allah was telling him about something which is to come. An event which is to come. And I, for example, from the time I understood that Jasad is Dajjal, who is an evil being, who wants to rule the world from Jerusalem, from the state of Israel. So he can declare, I am al-Masih, I am the Messiah. So from the time he saw this vision, ثُمَّ أَنَا, he turned to Allah penitently. قَالَ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. He wanted to ask something from Allah. And his way of asking, which is a sunnah that we should accept, is first seek forgiveness for sins and then ask. So he's not asking for any particular sin he committed. Not only the schoolboy will go on that fishing expedition. What sin did he commit? No. It is a general way. If you want to ask something from Allah, first ask for forgiveness. قَالَ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي, and grant that none can inherit my kingdom after me. Because I don't want him to inherit my kingdom. I prefer that my kingdom should collapse rather than that he should inherit my kingdom. That's the first meaning. But there's a second meaning. And grant that there could never be another state like my state, another kingdom comparable to mine. That's the second meaning. And Nabi Muhammad ﷺ said, now here is the connection, connecting the dots between the hadith and the Quran. Sulaiman ﷺ had the jinn, and they work for him. In several verses of the Quran. And if any jinn disobeyed, he is punished. Yes? And amongst the jinn there are the shayateen who are obliged to work for him. This is in the Quran. Why? Allah knows best. I could not understand. No, Allah knows best. So Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, one morning he said to the people at the time of Fajr, last night I had a fight with Shaitan and I defeated him. And I was going to tie him to the pillars of the masjid. And when you came to the masjid for salat, you'd have seen Iblis tied to the pillars of the masjid. Then I remembered the dua of my brother Sulaiman, and I had to release him. Now you see the connection? And so now we know that Allah accepted his dua. And as soon as Sulaiman alayhi salam died, holy Israel collapsed, never to be restored. This one is an impostor, never to be restored. We leave Surah As-Sad and we go to Surah As-Sabah. And this is your, if you don't mind my using the word, is your homework. If you don't mind my using this term, this is your homework. To go now and check out, to see what connection there is between that passage in Surah As-Sad and this passage in Surah As-Sabah. And when Sulaiman alayhi salam died, وَلَمَّا قَدَيْنَا سُلَيْمَانَ الْمَوْتِ, when Sulaiman alayhi salam died, in Surah As-Sabah, مَا ضَلَّهُمْ عَنْ مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ. The traditional understanding was nobody knew he was dead, and his body remained sitting on the throne, holding on to the staff for I don't know how long, until Dabbatul Ard came, ta'kulu min sa'atuhu, and Dabbatul Ard are termites. Did you hear that? Termites. And they start nibbling the bottom of his staff. One day Hollywood might make a movie of this. And when they had nibbled enough from the bottom of the staff, and the staff lost its balance, then the body of Sulaiman collapsed. And only then did the world know he was dead. So you don't mind my asking some question, do you? So I said to myself, wait a minute, what about when lunchtime came? And when dinner time came? Didn't they bring food for him? Huh? What about going to sleep in the night? What about going to the toilet and so on? Nobody ever thought about it? Was it that the whole kingdom went to sleep when he died? So I said, excuse me, this looks like a load of rubbish to me. It couldn't be correct. No. Then I realized, no. Everybody knew he was dead. Everybody knew he was buried. But the jinn who were shayateen, وَآخَرِينَ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ, they were in chains. In another word, a space and time. And they did not know he was dead. They did not know. And the reason why they were fooled was because they were seeing someone sitting on his throne, holding on to his staff. Now, do you see the connection between Sabah and Sad? Yes, it was the Jasad sitting on the throne. And then when Dabbatul Ard came and nibbled, the Quran doesn't say nibble. Ta'kulu min sa'atuhu. Ta'kulu, to consume. So, I sent to the eminent scholars of the Arabic language who were specialized in the Arabic of the Quran. One with a PhD in Arabic semantics of the Quran, and the other with a PhD in Quranic Arabic. I sent to them. I said, help me, what is min sa'ah? Asa, the staff, is with Sad. And this is a sin, min sa'ah. And they both replied to me, and they said, min sa'ah is the walking stick, the staff. After having gotten the response of the highest caliber of scholarship in Quranic Arabic, I was not satisfied because it didn't match the methodology of the Quran. I said, no, it is not the way of Allah that He should use the word asa 14, 15 times in the Quran for stuff. And in one solitary instance, He would use another word. That doesn't sound correct. So when I continued struggling with the word min sa'ah, I then realized that you're dealing with the system of time. The system of time, which we'll touch upon in my lecture 2 nights from now in Resta, inshallah, the Quran and the Moon. That the min sa'ah was a property of the staff with which you could intervene in the system of time. And if you intervene in the system of time, you could move back and forth in time. And so while holding on to the staff, he was able to portray images of Sulaiman alayhi salam alive, walking, talking, eating, moving, sitting, standing. And that's why the jinn were taken for a ride. But when Dabbatul Ard came and consumed the min sa'ah of the staff, which has not as yet occurred, it's still to happen, then the staff would lose its property to intervene in the system of time. And then the jinn will be able to see this is not Sulaiman alayhi salam, this is an impostor, this is the Jasad. And who is the Jasad? Now I've given you the proof of the connection between these two passages. This star and that star are now connected. Imam al-Ghazali did not do it. No. Dr. Iqbal did not do it. My teacher did not do it. That does not mean that I am superior to these men. It is because the time had not as yet come. It was not possible in their age. Allah has made it possible now. That does not make me in any way superior. I am fit to clean the shoes of these men, not fit to even clean their shoes. So my presenting this link between those stars does not make me superior to them in any way. Forget that. Now then, what's a Jasad? And I'll finish the talk, it's too long now. I'm giving you a taste of the scholarship which is to come when we rebuild the house of knowledge in Islam that Faisal is struggling for. And a new kind of Darul Uloom emerges that will now be able to study the Quran the way it ought to be studied, and then be able to advise the government of Pakistan how you deal with this problem.